The fork trembled in Helena's hand when she saw him walk through the restaurant door. 6 months. 6 months of therapy, of rebuilding every broken piece of herself, of learning to sleep without nightmares, of looking in the mirror and not seeing the pathetic woman Roman said she was. 6 months since the last time he dug his fingers into her arm so hard that it left purple marks for 2 weeks. And now he was there, at the Astoria, the most elegant restaurant in Boston, with a blonde on his arm and that smile that used to make her believe she was loved, but that she now recognized as a predator's mask. Helena felt the air escape from her lungs when Roman's eyes met hers across the chandelier-lit room. His smile widened. He said something to the blonde, who nodded, and then he began walking toward Helena's table. Each of his steps echoed in her chest like a war drum. She knew that walk, knew the tilt of his head, the way he adjusted his shirt cuffs. He was coming to humiliate her, to remind her that she would never be good enough, to destroy the only night in months that she had allowed herself to leave the house without fear. Hello, I'm Rachel Ashwood, and this is a fictional narration created for entertainment. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel so this content can reach more people. Leave your like, share, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Panic took hold of Helena like a frozen wave. She couldn't let him reach her, couldn't hear his voice again, that voice that whispered poison disguised as concern. Her eyes swept the restaurant desperately, looking for an exit, a distraction, anything. That's when she saw him. A man dining alone at the next table, his back partially turned to her. Impeccable dark suit, broad shoulders, perfectly styled black hair. He was cutting a steak with precise movements, completely oblivious to her internal chaos. Helena didn't think. There was no time to think. Roman was only 5 tables away. She stood up so abruptly that her chair scraped against the wooden floor, grabbed her purse, and walked to the stranger's table with steps she prayed would seem confident. The man looked up when she approached, and Helena felt something shift in the air. He had dark eyes, deep as bottomless wells, and a face sculpted in hard lines that didn't suggest kindness. But she had already gone too far. Before she could reconsider, before courage failed, Helena leaned in and pressed her lips against his. The world stopped. The man remained completely still under her touch, and Helena realized with delayed horror what she had just done. She had kissed a complete stranger. But then she whispered against his mouth, so low that only he could hear, with a voice broken by real desperation. "Please pretend you're my boyfriend. Please." She felt his body change, muscles tensing in a way that should have scared her. When she pulled back just enough to look into his eyes again, she saw something dangerous shining in that darkness. Something that said men didn't touch Stefan Kozlov without permission, and women certainly didn't kiss him without consequences. Helena was about to pull away, to murmur an apology and run out of the restaurant, when he did something unexpected. Stefan smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just found something interesting to play with. He stood up with a fluid movement, and Helena realized he was tall, easily surpassing her 5'5". Before she could process, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her against his body with a possessiveness that seemed rehearsed for years. "Honey, who's this?" Stefan's voice was deep, velvety, but there was a steel edge to it that made the hairs on Helena's neck stand up. He was looking over her head, and Helena turned slowly to see Roman standing 3 steps away. The expression on Roman's face was something she had never seen before. Surprise, yes, but also something more. Caution. Maybe even fear. Roman had always been good at reading people, at identifying who he could intimidate and who was better to avoid, and something in Stefan clearly lit up all the self-preservation alarms Roman possessed. "Oh, sorry. I didn't know you were with someone, Helena." Roman's voice was tense, forcedly casual. He looked at Stefan, then back at Helena, and she saw the moment he decided to back down. Just wanted to say hi. It's been a while. 6 months, Helena responded, and hated how her voice came out shaky. Stefan's hand squeezed her waist lightly, a gesture that might seem comforting to outside observers, but that Helena felt as a claim. 6 months since you decided you were no longer welcome in my girlfriend's life, Stefan added, and there was something in the way he said those words that made Roman take a step back. Roman forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sure. Well, it was good to see you, Helena. Enjoy your dinner. He turned and returned to his table with quick steps, and Helena felt her legs almost give out with relief. But then, the reality of what she had done fell on her like a bucket of cold water. She had just kissed a complete stranger, had lied about having a boyfriend. And worse, this stranger had entered the game without hesitation, but now she could feel the tension in his body, the way his fingers pressed her waist with enough force to make it clear she wouldn't be dismissed so easily. Stefan leaned in, his lips brushing her ear in a way that would seem intimate to anyone watching. Sit down. It wasn't a request. Helena swallowed hard and obeyed, sliding into the chair across from his as he returned to his seat. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. Stefan picked up his glass of red wine, took a long sip, and then rested those dark eyes on her with an intensity that made her want to shrink in her chair. You have 30 seconds to explain to me why you just used me as a human shield. But what Helena didn't know was that Stefan Kozlov never did anything without calculating all the consequences, and he had already decided he wasn't going to let her go anytime soon. Helena opened her mouth, but the words refused to come out. How would she explain? How would she tell this dangerously handsome and clearly important man that she was a coward, who couldn't even face her ex-boyfriend in a public restaurant? That she had spent 2 years being destroyed piece by piece until nothing remained but fear? I'm sorry, she finally managed to say, her voice coming out weaker than intended. I shouldn't have done that. It was inappropriate and invasive, and I'll leave now, and you can pretend this never happened. She started to get up, but his voice stopped her. I didn't say you could leave. Helena froze, half standing, half sitting, caught between the need to flee and something deeper, more primitive, that recognized disobeying this man would be a mistake. She sat down slowly. Stefan leaned back in his chair, studying her with the patience of someone who was used to having all the time in the world. He was handsome in a brutal way, Helena realized. There was nothing soft about him. The jaw was strong, the nose straight, the lips full but pressed in a line that suggested smiles were rare. But it was the eyes that held her. Dark, intense, seeing much more than she wanted to reveal. Your name, he said, and it wasn't a question. Helena, she answered. Helena Carter. And the idiot you were running from? Ex-boyfriend, she said quickly. Roman. We broke up 6 months ago and I just didn't expect to see him here and I panicked. Stefan nodded slowly, as if she had confirmed something he already suspected. Why did you panic, Helena Carter? It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of an interrogation. Helena felt the walls she had built around her secrets begin to crack. She owed this man nothing. Didn't need to explain. But there was something in the way he looked at her, without judgment, just calculated curiosity, that made the words escape. Because he wasn't kind to me. The admission came out in a whisper. Stefan said nothing for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the table, and Helena noticed he had large hands, with subtle scars on the knuckles, hands that had seen violence. Define wasn't kind. Helena looked away. I'd rather not go into details with a stranger. But we're not strangers anymore, Stefan said, and there was a touch of dark amusement in his voice. You kissed me. In front of a full restaurant. That makes us at least acquaintances. Heat rose to Helena's cheeks. I said I'm sorry. What do you want? Money? I can pay for your dinner. I want to know why a woman who is clearly terrified of a man chose to use me as protection." Helena finally found the courage to look back at him. "Because you seemed dangerous." The answer clearly surprised him, because one of his eyebrows arched. "And you thought dangerous was better than your ex?" "I thought dangerous would make him back down. And it worked." Stefan smiled again, and this time there was something genuine in it, though still predatory. "You have good instincts." He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Roman doesn't seem like the type who gives up easily. He'll be back." Helena's stomach tightened because she knew Stefan was right. Roman never accepted rejection. He always came back, always found a way to insert himself back into her life, to make her feel guilty, to convince her she was the problem. "I'll deal with it," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Stefan studied her for another moment, and then did something completely unexpected. He picked up his phone, typed something quickly, and then slid the device across the table to her. "Type your number." Helena looked at the phone as if it were a snake. "Why?" "Because you just made me your fake boyfriend, and boyfriends exchange numbers." "This isn't real," Helena protested. "It doesn't have to be." "Not for me," Stefan agreed. "But for Roman? It needs to be convincing. And if he's the type of man I think he is, he'll test it. He'll show up where you work, where you live, where you breathe. And when he does, you're going to need me." Helena wanted to argue, but the logic was too solid. Roman had done exactly that before. Showed up at the library where she worked, sent endless messages, waited outside her apartment. The restraining order she had gotten expired 2 months ago, and she didn't have enough evidence to renew it. With trembling hands, she picked up the phone and typed her number. When she returned the device, Stefan saved the contact and then sent a quick message. Helena's phone vibrated in her pocket. "Done," he said. "Now finish your dinner. You barely touched your food." Helena looked at the plate she had ordered before all this chaos began. Seafood pasta that was now cold and unappetizing. "I lost my appetite." "Then have a drink." "You're pale." Before she could refuse, Stefan waved to a waiter, who appeared instantly as if he had been waiting for a command. "Red wine for the lady, the best you have." The waiter nodded and disappeared. Helena frowned. "I didn't order that." "No, I did. And you're going to drink it because you're shaking and need something to calm your nerves." "I'm not shaking," Helena lied, but even as she said it, she realized her hands were indeed trembling slightly. Stefan saw it too, and something passed over his face. Something that almost looked like anger, but not directed at her. "How long?" he asked suddenly. "How long what? How long did he put his hands on you?" The air left Helena's lungs at once. "How do you know?" "I recognize the signs," Stefan said simply. "I grew up in a world where violence is common currency. You have the look of someone who learned to anticipate blows." Helena felt tears sting her eyes and force them back. She wasn't going to cry in front of this stranger. 2 years, she admitted. 2 years of walking on eggshells, of apologies that were never enough, of believing that if she was just better, quieter, more obedient, he would stop. The waiter returned with a glass of red wine that probably cost more than Helena earned in a day. She took the glass and took a generous sip, letting the warm liquid slide down her throat. Stefan watched every movement. "Why did you stay?" The question was direct, without judgment, but it still hurt. "Because I thought I loved him. Because he convinced me no one else would want me. Because I was ashamed to admit I had become that woman you see on the news and think, why didn't she just leave?" Helena took another sip of wine. "But I did. 6 months ago, I gathered courage and left. And I've been working hard to rebuild my life." "Good," Stefan said, and there was genuine approval in his voice. "That takes strength." Helena gave a bitter laugh. "It didn't feel like strength when I panicked and kissed a stranger." Stefan leaned back again, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. Survival isn't always pretty. You did what you needed to do. There was a moment of silence, and then he continued. But now you have a problem. Roman saw you with me. He's going to want to know who I am. And when he finds out, he's going to do one of two things: back down permanently or try to challenge me. Helena felt her blood freeze. Find out what? Who you are. Stefan smiled, but there was no humor in it. Let's say I'm not the type of man who shows up at charity parties. My name carries weight in Boston, and not the kind of weight that comes from clean money. The realization fell on Helena like a stone. She had chosen the wrong man for her desperate plan. Or maybe, considering Roman had backed down immediately, she had chosen exactly the right man. You're a criminal, she said, and it wasn't a question. I'm a businessman, Stefan corrected. But yes, my businesses occasionally operate in gray areas of the law. Helena should get up, should thank him for the help, leave the restaurant and never look back. But she remained seated, because a terrible and desperate part of her whispered that maybe, just maybe, a dangerous man was exactly what she needed to keep Roman away. So what happens now? She asked. Now, Stefan said, picking up his own glass of wine. You and I are going to finish our dinners. You're going to laugh at something I say, because Roman is watching from his table and needs to believe this is real. And then I'm going to take you home, give you my private number, and you're going to call me when he inevitably shows up. What if I don't want to call you? Then you'll deal with Roman alone. But we both know how that ends. Helena hated that he was right, hated that she had put herself in this position. But more than anything, she hated that a part of her felt safer sitting across from this confessed criminal than she had felt in months. Okay, she finally said, but this is temporary. Just until Roman gives up. Temporary, Stefan agreed, but there was something in his eyes that said he didn't believe that one bit. They finished dinner in strangely normal conversation. Stefan asked about her work at the library, and Helena found herself gradually relaxing as she talked about rare books and children who came for story time. He was a good listener, she realized. Asked intelligent questions, remembered details. It was disconcerting. When the check arrived, Stefan grabbed it before Helena could even reach for it. I can pay for my part, she protested. Not when you're dining with me. This is non-negotiable. There was a firmness in his voice that left no room for arguments. Helena watched as he placed a black credit card on the tray without even looking at the total. While they waited, Helena risked a glance in Roman's direction. He was watching, eyes fixed on them with an intensity she knew too well. It was the look he had before exploding, before finding some way to punish her for some imaginary transgression. She looked away quickly. He's watching, she murmured. I know, Stefan said calmly. Let him watch. When the waiter returned with the receipt, Stefan signed with a flourish, and then stood up, extending his hand to Helena. She hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused, and swallowed hers completely. He pulled her close as they left the restaurant, his arm wrapping around her shoulders in a way that would seem both protective and possessive. Helena could feel Roman's eyes burning into her back with every step. The cold October Boston air hit them when they left. The street was busy with evening traffic, car lights painting patterns on the sidewalks wet from an earlier rain. Stefan guided her to a sleek black car parked directly in front of the restaurant, in a no-parking zone. Of course he would park wherever he wanted, Helena thought. Men like him didn't follow rules. But before he could open the door for her, a voice reached them. Helena. She froze. Roman had come out after them. Stefan turned slowly, subtly placing himself between Helena and Roman, and she realized it was intentional. Instinctive protection. Is there something you need? Stefan asked, his voice dangerously polite. Roman ignored him, eyes fixed on Helena. I just want to talk to you for a minute. In private. No, Helena said. surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "We have nothing to talk about." Roman took a step closer, and Helena saw the mask begin to slip, saw the familiar anger begin to shine in his eyes. "After 2 years together, you won't give me even 5 minutes? This is ridiculous, Helena. You're being dramatic." The word dramatic had always been one of his favorites. Dramatic when she cried after he pushed her against the wall. Dramatic when she begged him to stop yelling. Dramatic when she finally had the courage to leave. Stefan took a step forward, and suddenly the space between him and Roman shrank to almost nothing. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. She said no. "You have 3 seconds to go back inside before I decide you're a problem that needs to be solved permanently." There was something in the way Stefan said it. So casual, so factual, that made it clear it wasn't an empty threat. Roman must have realized it too, because he backed away, hands raised in false surrender. "Hey man, no problem. I was just trying to be polite." "Then be polite somewhere else," Stefan said. Roman looked at Helena one more time, and she saw the promise in his eyes. This isn't over. Then he turned and went back into the restaurant. Helena realized she had been holding her breath and released it in a shaky sigh. Stefan turned to her, hands landing on her shoulders. "Are you okay?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Get in the car. I'll take you home." The ride was silent for the first few minutes. Helena gave the address, and Stefan drove with the same controlled precision that seemed to define everything about him. The car's interior smelled of expensive leather and something masculine she couldn't identify. "Thank you," she finally said. "For tonight. For playing along. For not letting him corner me." Stefan kept his eyes on the road. "You don't need to thank me for basic decency. But that wasn't basic decency. You could have ignored me. Could have sent me away when I kissed you. Could have let Roman approach me." "I could have," Stefan agreed. "But I didn't." Helena turned to look at his profile, illuminated by the streetlights. "Why?" He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then softly, almost reluctantly, he said, "Because I saw real fear in your eyes, and I have a particular weakness for women brave enough to ask for help." The admission surprised her. There were layers to this man she didn't expect. They arrived at her apartment building, a 4-story brick building in a decent but not luxurious neighborhood. Stefan parked and turned off the engine. "What floor?" "3rd, Helena said. "Apartment 3B. Stefan nodded and then picked up his phone, typing something. Seconds later, her phone vibrated. "That's my private number," he said. "Not many people have it. If Roman shows up, if he contacts you, if you feel you're in danger, you call me. No matter the time." Helena looked at the number saved on the screen. "Just Stefan, no last name." "I can't ask you to be my personal bodyguard. You're not asking. I'm offering." There was a finality in his voice that left no room for arguments. Helena opened the door but hesitated before getting out. "Stefan, why are you doing this? Really?" He turned to look directly at her, and the intensity in his eyes held her in place. "Because men like Roman need to be stopped. And because something about you intrigues me, Helena Carter. I haven't decided what it is yet, but I intend to find out." Before she could respond, he continued, "Go inside, lock the door, and text me when you're safe." Helena got out of the car, legs still trembling. She climbed the stairs to her apartment, opened the door, and locked it behind her as instructed. Then, feeling strangely obedient, she picked up her phone and typed, "I'm home. Locked in. Thank you again." The response came in seconds. "Good. Sleep well, Helena. I'll be around." The last sentence should have scared her. Instead, for the first time in months, Helena felt safe enough to actually believe she could sleep through the night without waking up in panic. She didn't know that 3 floors below, Stefan was still sitting in the car, watching her apartment windows, phone in hand with a message already typed to his head of security. I need complete information on a man named Roman. Last name to be confirmed. Frequents the Astoria. I want to know where he works, where he lives, and every skeleton in his closet. 48 hours, and Stefan Kozlov always got what he wanted in much less time than that. Helena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the night in her mind. The impulsive kiss, Stefan's dark eyes, the way Roman had backed down, the feeling of Stefan's hand on her waist. At 3 a.m, she gave up on sleeping and went to the kitchen to make tea. Her apartment was small but cozy, decorated with second-hand furniture she had restored, and bookshelves full of books she had collected since childhood. It was the first place that was truly hers since she left Roman, and she protected it fiercely. The phone vibrated on the counter, making her jump. A message from an unknown number. I know you're awake. I see light in your window. You should be sleeping. Helena's heart raced. She ran to the living room window and looked down at the street. Stefan's black car was still there, parked under a streetlight. She could see his silhouette in the driver's seat. With trembling fingers, she typed back, "You stayed there this whole time?" The response was immediate. I said I'd be around. It wasn't a metaphor. Helena didn't know whether she should feel watched or protected. Maybe both. You can't stay in your car all night. Of course I can. I've done worse things. Helena bit her lip, internal war tearing at her. The rational part said to leave him there, not to get more involved with a man who admitted to operating outside the law. But the part of her that had spent 6 months looking over her shoulder, jumping at every unexpected sound, that part wanted the safety he offered. Before she could think better of it, she typed, "Want to come up for coffee?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Are you sure?" No, she wasn't. But she typed, "Yes, apartment 3B. 2 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Helena checked the peephole, saw Stefan on the other side, and opened the door. He looked exactly like at the restaurant, impeccable and dangerous, except now there was a slight shadow of stubble on his jaw and something softer in his eyes. "You didn't need to do this," he said, "but entered anyway. I know. But you also didn't need to stay in your car watching over me. And yet here we are." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Fair point. Helena closed the door and guided him to the small kitchen. She could feel his eyes assessing the space, cataloging every detail. "It's small," she said defensively. "But it's mine. It's cozy," Stefan said, and it sounded genuine. "You decorated it yourself?" Helena nodded as she filled the kettle. "Everything here I bought or restored. When I left Roman, I didn't take anything. I wanted to start completely from scratch. Smart. Doesn't give him an excuse to show up demanding belongings back." "Exactly," Helena said, surprised he understood the tactic. She grabbed 2 mugs and tea bags. "Sorry, I don't have anything stronger. Tea is perfect." They stood in silence while the water boiled, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Stefan leaned against the counter, hands in his pockets, watching her with that intensity that should make her nervous, but strangely didn't. "Can I ask something?" Helena said as she poured hot water into the mugs. "You can ask. I don't guarantee I'll answer." "Fair." She handed him a mug. "Why are you really doing this? You don't know me. Don't owe me anything. And something tells me you're not the type of man who does charity." Stefan took the mug, his fingers brushing hers briefly. "You're right. I don't do charity. But I also don't tolerate men who put their hands on women. It's a personal rule." Helena studied his face. "There's a story there." "There's always a story," Stefan said, but didn't elaborate. Instead, he took a sip of tea and changed the subject. "Tell me about Roman. How did you meet? Helena sighed and leaned against the opposite counter, putting safe distance between them. Library. He came in all the time, said he liked to read. He was charming, attentive, took me to dinners, sent flowers. I thought I had found someone special. When did it change? Gradually. First it was just comments about my clothes, my weight, my friends. Then he started wanting to know where I was all the time. Then came the isolation. He convinced me to distance myself from my family, said they didn't understand me like he did. And when I was completely alone, that's when it started. Stefan placed the mug on the counter with deliberate care. When did he put his hands on you for the first time? Helena closed her eyes, the memory still too vivid. 8 months after we started dating, I questioned why he was coming home late. He pushed me against the wall and said I had no right to question him. Then he cried, apologized, said he was stressed. I believed him, and it happened again and again, each time with a different excuse, each time followed by flowers and promises, until the excuses stopped and he just did it because he could. Helena's voice broke. Because I let him. No, Stefan said, his voice sharp. You didn't let him. He manipulated you, isolated you, systematically broke you down until you couldn't see a way out. That's not your fault. The tears Helena had held back at the restaurant finally fell. I feel so stupid. I have a college degree. I read about these things. I should have known better. Intelligence doesn't protect you from emotional predators, Stefan said softly. They're experts at finding and exploiting vulnerabilities. He moved then, closing the distance between them, and gently wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The touch was surprisingly tender coming from a man who emanated danger. But you left. That's what matters. Helena looked up at those dark eyes that saw much more than she wanted to reveal. Why do I feel like you understand this better than you should? Because I grew up in a house where violence was the primary language, Stefan admitted. My father believed fear was the best form of control. My mother took years to finally leave him. The revelation surprised her. Did she? When I was 16. I helped her. My father wasn't happy about it. The scars on his knuckles suddenly made sense. You fought him. I did what needed to be done to protect my mother. Stefan moved away, picking up the mug again. After that, I swore I would never be like him, that I would use power in different ways. He paused. I'm not a good man, Helena. I do things that would make you run from me, but I have lines I don't cross, and men who abuse women are on the other side of every one of them. Helena felt something shift between them, an understanding, a connection forged in shared trauma, even if in different ways. Roman won't give up, she said softly. He never gives up. I know, Stefan said. That's why I'm still here. And that's why you need to let me handle this. Handle how? Stefan met her eyes. It's better you don't know the details, but I can promise he won't hurt you again. Helena knew she should refuse, knew that accepting help from a criminal was crossing a line she couldn't uncross. But she was so tired of being afraid, so tired of looking over her shoulder, so tired of being a victim. Okay, she whispered, but I don't want you to do anything that puts you at risk. Stefan smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Darling, men like Roman aren't a risk to me. They're inconveniences. He finished the tea and placed the mug in the sink. Now go to sleep. I'll stay on the couch. You don't need to do that. I do. Because in approximately 4 hours, Roman is going to find out who I am. And when he does, he's going to make a decision. Back down or escalate. If he chooses to escalate, I need to be here. Helena wanted to argue, but exhaustion finally caught up with her. Okay, let me get blankets. She set up the couch for him, very aware of how strange it was to have this dangerous man in her space, but also of how comforting it was not to be alone. Stefan, she said as she turned to go to the bedroom. Thank you. For everything. He nodded. Sleep, Helena. I'll be here when you wake up. And for the first time in 6 months, Helena believed she would actually be safe during the night. She went to the bedroom, changed clothes, and slipped under the covers. On the other side of the wall, she could hear Stefan moving through the living room, the sound of his phone vibrating with messages, his low voice talking to someone. She should be scared. Instead, she closed her eyes and slept more deeply than she had slept in years. But 3 floors below, on the dark street, Roman was sitting in his own car, watching the building. He had seen Stefan enter, had seen the lights go out, and he was making calls of his own, finding out exactly who the man was that Helena had chosen as a shield. When he found out, he smiled, because Roman had never backed down from a challenge in his life, and he wasn't going to start now. Even if that challenge was the most dangerous man in Boston. Helena woke to the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't process. She hadn't made coffee. Then the memory of the previous night came back in a wave, and she sat up abruptly in bed. Stefan. He was still here. She got out of bed, ran her fingers through her messy hair, and walked cautiously to the living room. Stefan was in the kitchen, completely at ease, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He had taken off his jacket and rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing muscular forearms and a few more scars that told stories she probably didn't want to know. "Good morning," he said, without turning around. "There are eggs in the fridge. I can make an omelet if you want. You didn't need to make coffee," Helena said, still processing the surreal normalcy of the scene. "I needed caffeine, and it would be rude to make it just for myself." He turned and extended a mug to her. "You sleep deeply. I checked on you twice during the night to make sure you were still breathing." The admission should have sounded scary, but coming from him, it sounded protective. Helena took the coffee and took a sip. It was perfect, strong, no sugar. How she liked it. "You remember last night when I said Roman was going to find out who I am?" Stefan asked, his voice too casual. Helena felt her stomach tighten. "He found out?" At 4:30 in the morning, my phone rang. It was one of my associates informing me that someone was asking questions about me. Specific questions. Where I live, what businesses I have, who my enemies are. It took 20 minutes to track it back to Roman. What does that mean? It means he's not backing down. He's preparing. Stefan placed his mug on the counter. It also means he's stupider than I thought, because anyone with half a brain knows that investigating Stefan Kozlov is a quick way to end up in the river. Helena felt her blood freeze. "You're not really going to do that, are you?" "Kill him?" Stefan studied her for a long moment. "You want the honest truth, or the answer that will make you feel better?" "The truth." "I don't know yet. Depends on how far he takes this. If he backs down now, I let him live with a very clear warning about what happens if he contacts you again. If he keeps escalating, if he threatens you, if he puts his hands on you one more time, then yes, I'll solve the problem permanently. Helena should be horrified, should tell him to leave, that she would handle this through legal channels. But the part of her that had lived in terror for 2 years, the part that still woke up with nightmares of hands around her throat, that part whispered that maybe the world would be better without Roman in it. "I don't want you to go to prison because of me," she said finally. "I won't," Stefan assured. "I'm very good at what I do." There was an absolute confidence in his voice that should scare her, but strangely comforted her. "So what do we do now? Now you go to work as normal. Live your life. And I'll make sure Roman understands that you're under my protection." "How?" "Leave that to me." Stefan picked up his jacket that was hanging on the back of the couch. But first, I need you to do something for me. What? Trust me. Just for a few days. Can you do that? Helena looked at that hard face, those dark eyes that had seen violence she could only imagine, and realized that against all logic, she trusted him. Maybe because he had had every opportunity to hurt her and hadn't. Maybe because he understood in a way no one else understood. Or maybe because she was desperate enough to cling to any lifeline. I can try, she said. Good enough. Stefan approached, and Helena had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. He was so tall, so solid, so completely present in a way that made the world around seem less threatening. I'm going to take you to work, he said, and I'm going to pick you up when your shift ends. You can't be my personal driver. I can do whatever I want. And today, I want to make sure you get to and from work safely. It's non-negotiable. Helena sighed, realizing that arguing with Stefan Kozlov was probably as effective as arguing with a brick wall. Okay, but I need to change first. You have 20 minutes. Exactly 19 minutes later, Helena emerged from the bedroom dressed in black pants and a light blue blouse, hair pulled back in a ponytail. Stefan assessed her with approval. You're punctual. I like that. The ride to the library was silent, but not uncomfortable. Helena watched the city pass by the window, Boston waking up to another day. People going to work, children going to school, normal life happening while hers had become anything but normal. When they arrived at the library, a historic stone building in the heart of the city, Stefan parked directly in front. What time do you finish? 5 o'clock. I'll be here at 5. Stefan, you really don't need to do this every day. He turned to look directly at her. Until Roman is no longer a threat, yes, I do. Now go. You're late. Helena checked her watch and realized he was right. She grabbed her purse, but before she could get out, Stefan took her hand. If anything happens, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, you call me immediately. Understood? Understood, Helena agreed. His hand squeezed hers once before releasing. Good morning, Helena. Good morning, Stefan. She got out of the car and climbed the library steps, very aware that he didn't drive away until she was safely inside. The day passed in a fog of normalcy. Helena cataloged books, helped patrons, read to a group of children at story time. But her mind kept wandering back to Stefan, to the way he had slept on her couch to protect her, to the way he looked at her as if she were something precious and dangerous at the same time. During lunch, her phone vibrated. A message from Stefan. How's your day? She smiled despite herself and responded. Quiet. Lots of books, no drama. Good. Keep it that way. There was something comforting about knowing he was thinking of her, something that made the day seem less lonely. But at 3 p.m, normalcy ended abruptly. Helena was in the reference section when she saw Roman enter through the main door. Her heart stopped. He saw her immediately, and that smile she hated spread across his face. He started walking toward her with the confidence of someone who thought he had every right to be there. With trembling hands, Helena grabbed her phone and typed a quick message to Stefan. He's here, at the library, now. The response came in seconds. Don't be alone with him, public place. I'm on my way. Helena put away her phone and forced herself to stay where she was. She wasn't going to run, wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. Roman stopped a few steps away, hands in his pockets, casual as if they were old friends meeting by chance. Helena, he said, his voice low and friendly. Can we talk? I'm working, she responded, keeping her voice steady. And we have nothing to talk about. I disagree. I think we have a lot to talk about. Like the fact that you're dating a criminal. Helena felt anger replace fear. My personal life is no longer your concern. It wasn't for 2 years. It's not now. Roman took a step closer, and Helena had to force herself not to back away. I care about you, Helena. I always cared. And this man you were with last night, Stefan Kozlov, he's dangerous. If you cared about me, Helena said, her voice trembling with contained anger, you wouldn't have spent 2 years making me feel worthless. You wouldn't have pushed me, yelled at me, made me believe I was the problem. So don't come here pretending concern now. I was stressed, Roman said. The old familiar excuse. I wasn't myself. But I've changed, Helena. I've been in therapy. I want to prove to you I can be better. No, she said firmly. I don't care if you've changed. I don't care if you're a saint now. I've moved on. And you need to do the same. Roman's mask slipped for just a second, and Helena saw the anger flash in his eyes. Moved on to a mobster? That's what you call improvement? Before Helena could respond, a voice cut through the air. I believe the lady asked you to leave. Helena turned and saw Stefan standing at the end of the book aisle. He had arrived silently, and there was something absolutely lethal in the way he stood, relaxed, but ready for violence. Roman turned too, and Helena saw the moment he realized he had made a mistake. Stefan wasn't alone. There were 2 men with him, both large, both clearly bodyguards. We were just talking, Roman said, but there was a note of nervousness in his voice now. No, Stefan corrected, walking slowly toward them. You were bothering her at work after she made it clear she doesn't want to talk to you. That's not conversation. That's harassment. He stopped next to Helena, and she felt his hand land lightly on her back, a gesture of ownership and protection. Roman looked between the two, and Helena saw the moment he made his decision. He wasn't going to back down. He was going to double down. You think you scare me? Roman said, his voice rising. I know who you are, Kozlov. I know what kind of man you are. And I'm not going to let you manipulate Helena. Manipulate? Stefan repeated, and there was something dangerous in the calm of his voice. That's interesting coming from a man who spent 2 years abusing her. Roman turned red. I never abused her. We had problems, like all couples have, but I never hurt her. You're lying, Helena said, her voice coming out stronger than she expected. You hurt me. Repeatedly, physically and emotionally. And I have medical photos to prove it. The revelation clearly surprised him. You don't have photos. I do, Helena said. I started documenting everything in the last 6 months we were together. Every bruise, every cut, every burn. My therapist advised me to do it. Roman looked at her with something that seemed like betrayal. You were planning to incriminate me. I was planning to survive, Helena corrected, and to have evidence in case you tried to kill me. Which, considering you once put your hands around my neck until I almost passed out, wasn't exactly paranoia. The silence that followed was heavy. Stefan looked at Helena, and she saw something change in his eyes. Something cold and final. He put his hands around your neck, Stefan said, and it wasn't a question. Helena nodded, unable to speak suddenly. Stefan turned slowly to Roman, and whatever Roman saw in his face made him take a step back. You have 3 seconds to leave this library, Stefan said, his voice so low that only the 3 of them could hear. And then, you have 24 hours to leave Boston. Because if I see you again, if I hear that you contacted Helena again, if I find out you even thought about her, I'm going to show you exactly what happens to men who strangle women, and it will be slow. I'm not afraid of you, Roman said, but his voice betrayed otherwise. You should be, Stefan responded. Now leave. Roman looked at Helena one more time, and she saw the promise in his eyes. This isn't over. Then he turned and left the library, his steps echoing in the silent space. Helena realized she was shaking. Stefan turned to her immediately, hands landing on her shoulders. Are you okay? She nodded, but couldn't speak. The adrenaline was leaving her system, leaving her weak. He put his hands around your neck, Stefan repeated, and there was a contained fury in his voice that she had never heard before. Yes, Helena whispered. It was the worst time. I thought he was going to kill me. Stefan closed his eyes for a moment, jaw clenched. When he opened them again, there was a cold resolution in them. He won't touch you again, I promise. Helena believed him. God help her, she believed him. Do you need to finish your shift? Stefan asked. She shook her head. I need to go home. Then let's go. He guided her out of the library, his hand never leaving her back. The two bodyguards followed at a respectful distance. In the car, Helena finally found her voice. Do you really think he'll leave Boston? No, Stefan said honestly. Men like him never accept defeat. But I needed to give him the chance to make the right choice. Now that he hasn't, I can act without remorse. Helena looked at his profile. What are you going to do? Make sure he's never a problem for you again. How? Helena, Stefan said gently. The less you know, the better you'll sleep at night. She knew he was right. But a part of her, the part that had been a victim for so long, wanted to know. Wanted justice, even if it came from dirty hands. They arrived at her apartment, and Stefan parked. I'm coming up with you. You don't need to watch over me 24 hours. Today I do. After what you told me, I need to make sure you're safe. There was something in his voice, a vulnerability she didn't expect, that made Helena realize this was personal for him in ways that went beyond just helping a stranger. They went up to the apartment, and Helena locked the door behind them. Stefan immediately went to the windows, checking each one, testing the locks. You need better locks, he said, and cameras. I'll arrange it. Stefan, this is too much. It's not enough, he corrected. He put his hands around your neck, Helena. He tried to kill you, and you're still living in an apartment with locks a child could break. This ends now. There was a finality in his voice that left no room for arguments. Helena sat on the couch, suddenly exhausted. Stefan sat next to her, maintaining respectful distance, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. Thank you, she said softly, for showing up today, for not letting me face him alone. You'll never have to face him alone again, Stefan said. I promise you that. Helena turned to look at him. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. Stefan was silent for a long moment, eyes fixed on some distant point. Then, so low she almost didn't hear, he said, Because when I was 10 years old, I watched my father put his hands around my mother's neck. And I was too small, too weak, too scared to do anything but watch. She almost died that day. And I swore that if I ever had power, if I was ever strong enough, I would never let that happen to another woman in front of me. Helena's heart broke for that 10-year-old boy. Without thinking, she reached out and took his hand. Stefan looked down at her fingers intertwined with his, and something softened in his face. You saved your mother, Helena said, when you were 16. You did what you couldn't do at 10. I did, Stefan agreed. But I still remember what it was like to be powerless, and I never want to feel that again. They sat like that for a long time, hands intertwined, two survivors of violence finding comfort in each other. Then Stefan's phone rang. He checked the screen and his expression hardened. I need to take this. Helena nodded and released his hand. Stefan stood up and went to the window, speaking in a low voice in Russian. Helena didn't understand the words, but understood the tone. Orders being given. Plans being made. When he hung up and turned back to her, there was something different in his eyes. Something decided. I need to go out for a few hours, he said. But Marcus will stay outside your building. He's one of my best men. If you need anything at all, you call me. Okay, Helena said, though a part of her didn't want him to go. Stefan walked to her, and to her surprise, he leaned in and kissed her forehead, a gesture so tender it made her eyes burn. "Lock the door behind me, and don't open it for anyone but me, I promise." He hesitated for another moment, as if he wanted to say something more, but then simply nodded and left. Helena locked the door as instructed, and then went to the window. Down below, she saw Stefan get in the car and drive away. Another car, a black SUV, was parked in front of the building. Marcus, she assumed. She should feel imprisoned, watched, controlled. But all she felt was safe, and that realization scared her almost as much as Roman, because she was starting to depend on Stefan Kozlov in ways that could be as dangerous as the relationship she had just escaped. But as she curled up on the couch with a book she couldn't concentrate on reading, a part of her whispered that maybe, just maybe, not all dependence was bad. Maybe sometimes you needed someone strong enough to hold you while you learned to stand again. And maybe Stefan Kozlov, with all his dangerous edges and dark secrets, was exactly what she needed to finally be free. If you're enjoying this story of suspense and forbidden passion, don't forget to check out the Dangerous Obsession ebook collection with intense and engaging adult stories. You'll find the link pinned in the comments and the QR code on the screen. Stories that will grip you from beginning to end. 3 hours passed. Helena had tried to read, tried to watch television, tried to do anything to distract her mind from what Stefan might be doing, but her imagination kept conjuring scenarios, each more violent than the last. She knew he was dealing with Roman, knew that whatever was happening wasn't legal or kind, and the scariest part was that she didn't care as much as she should. When the phone finally rang, she answered before the second ring. "Stefan? It's me. Is everything okay? Are you safe?" "I'm safe. Marcus is still down there. But are you okay?" "I'm fine. I'll be there in 20 minutes. We need to talk." His tone made Helena's stomach tighten. "Okay." The call ended, and Helena spent the next 20 minutes pacing the apartment. When the doorbell finally rang, she checked the peephole and saw Stefan. He looked exactly like before, impeccable and controlled, but there was something different in his eyes, something darker. "What happened?" Helena asked as soon as the door was closed. Stefan turned to face her. "Roman won't be a problem anymore." "What does that mean?" "It means he's leaving Boston. Tonight. And he won't be back." "How did you manage that?" Stefan studied her for a moment. "Do you really want to know?" Helena realized she didn't, but also realized she needed to understand exactly what kind of man had become her protector. "Yes." Stefan sighed and went to the couch, sitting heavily. Helena sat next to him, waiting. "I had a conversation with him," Stefan began. "A very clear conversation about consequences. I showed him evidence of every crime he's ever committed, every law he's broken. Tax evasion, fraud, some more serious things. Things that would put him in prison for years." "How did you get that in a few hours?" "I have resources," Stefan said simply. "And when you know where to look, it's surprising what you find." So I gave him a choice. "Leave Boston tonight and never come back, never contact you again, or I hand everything over to the authorities and make sure he gets the maximum time possible." And he agreed? After some persuasion, yes. Helena was sure persuasion was a euphemism for something much more intimidating. "Did you hurt him?" "Not physically," Stefan said. "But I made it very clear what would happen if he didn't cooperate. And I have men monitoring him to make sure he actually leaves the city. If he tries to come back, I'll know." Helena should be horrified by the manipulation, by the threats, by the way Stefan had used his power and resources to force Roman to flee. But all she felt was overwhelming relief. He's really gone? Really? Stefan turned to look directly at her. "You're free, Helena. Truly free." The tears came then, hot and fast, years of fear and tension finally being released. Stefan pulled her into his arms without hesitation, and Helena allowed herself to fall apart against his chest, sobbing into his expensive shirt while he held her and murmured soft words in Russian that she didn't understand, but that comforted her anyway. "Sorry," she finally managed to say, pulling back and wiping her eyes. "I'm ruining your shirt." "I don't care about the shirt," Stefan said gently. "Cry as much as you need." But Helena had cried enough. She looked up at that hard face that had become unexpectedly precious to her in such a short time. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. You saved yourself," Stefan corrected. "You left 6 months ago. You rebuilt your life. You were brave enough to ask for help when you needed it. I just gave a final push." Helena laughed, the sound wet but genuine. "A push? That's what you call blackmailing someone out of the city?" Stefan smiled. "I prefer to think of it as aggressive persuasion." They sat like that, too close to be appropriate, but not close enough for what Helena was starting to want. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now you live your life," Stefan said, "without fear, without looking over your shoulder. You go to work, see friends, do whatever you want. And me? Where do I fit in that?" The question hung between them, loaded with possibilities. Stefan reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Where do you want me to fit?" Helena knew she should be cautious, knew she had just gotten out of a destructive relationship, and that jumping into another, especially with a man like Stefan, was probably the worst idea possible. But she also knew that what she felt for Stefan was fundamentally different from what she had felt for Roman. Roman had made her feel small, controlled, scared. Stefan made her feel protected, valued, seen. "I don't know," she admitted. "This all happened so fast. 2 days ago, I didn't even know you existed. And now you're the person who makes me feel safest in the world. That should scare me, but it doesn't." Stefan nodded slowly. "I understand. And I'm not going to pressure you for anything you're not ready to give. But I need you to know that what started as me playing a role to scare your ex has become something more for me. You've become something more." Helena's heart accelerated. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want this to end. I'm saying I want to keep seeing you, getting to know you, protecting you if you'll let me. Not because you need protection, but because I want to be in your life." The raw honesty in his voice touched her deeply. "But I have baggage," Helena said. "A lot of trauma. It's going to take time for me to fully trust again." "I have time," Stefan said simply. "And I have my own baggage. We can unpack together." Helena felt something loosen in her chest. Something that had been tight for so long. She had forgotten what it was like to breathe without that weight. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's try." Slowly. Slowly, Stefan agreed. Then he leaned in and pressed his lips against her forehead again, that tender gesture that was becoming familiar. But this time, Helena turned slightly, and his lips brushed her temple, her cheek. She heard his breath change, felt the tension in his body. "Helena," he said, his voice hoarse. "If you don't want this, you need to tell me now, because my self-control has limits." "I want it," she whispered. "I just don't know if I should want it." "Then don't think," Stefan said. "Just feel." And then he kissed her. Really this time. Not the desperate kiss she had given in the restaurant, but something slow and deliberate and completely devastating. His lips were surprisingly soft, moving against hers with a patience that contrasted with the intensity she felt emanating from him. Helena melted against him, hands rising to clutch his shirt while he deepened the kiss, his tongue tracing her lower lip in a silent question. She opened for him, and the low sound he made in his throat sent heat through her entire body. This was different from any kiss she had ever experienced. There was no desperate urgency, no attempt to control or dominate. It was an exploration, a promise, a claim that somehow didn't feel suffocating. When they finally separated, both were breathless. Stefan rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed. "That was?" he began, then stopped. "Perfect," Helena finished. He opened his eyes, and the heat in them made her tremble. "Yes. Perfect." But then he pulled away, putting distance between them, and Helena felt the loss immediately. "Why did you stop?" "Because you said slowly," Stefan said, his voice strained. "And if I don't stop now, slowly is going to become impossible." His honesty made her smile. "You have self-control." "Barely," he admitted. "You have no idea how much I want you. But you deserve to be courted properly, deserve time to heal. And I'm not going to ruin this by being impatient." Helena felt something warm bloom in her chest. No one had ever put her needs first like that. "You're a good man, Stefan Kozlov." "I'm many things," Stefan said. "But when I'm with you, I want to be good." They stayed up late talking, learning about each other. Helena told him about her childhood in a small town, about how she had always loved books, about her dreams of one day opening her own bookstore. Stefan told her about growing up on the streets of Boston, about how he built his empire from nothing, about the mother he still visited every week. When Helena finally started to doze on the couch, Stefan gently carried her to the bedroom. She protested sleepily, but he simply placed her in bed and pulled the covers over her. "Are you going to stay?" she murmured. "I'll be on the couch," he promised. "I won't leave you alone tonight." And with that promise, Helena finally let sleep take her, knowing that for the first time in years, she was truly safe. But outside the building, in a rental car 3 blocks ahead, Roman watched Helena's apartment windows. He hadn't left, wasn't going to leave. Because men like Roman never accepted defeat, and he had a plan that would make Stefan Kozlov regret getting involved in his affairs, and make Helena regret leaving him. Helena woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee again. For a moment, she thought she had dreamed the last few days. But then memory returned. The kiss, Stefan's promises, the feeling of finally being free from Roman. She got up and found Stefan in the kitchen, already dressed impeccably despite having slept on the couch. "Good morning," he said, extending a mug of coffee to her. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I've slept in years," Helena admitted. "And you?" "The couch can't have been comfortable." "I've slept in worse places," Stefan said with a half smile. "But I need to go home to change clothes and take care of some business. Marcus will stay here until I get back." "You don't need to keep watching over me," Helena protested. "Roman is gone." Stefan hesitated, and something passed over his face. "About that," he began, then stopped. "What?" Helena asked, her stomach tightening. "Stefan, what happened?" "Roman didn't catch the flight he was supposed to catch last night." Helena's blood froze. "What do you mean?" "I had men at the airport waiting to confirm he boarded. He never showed up. And when my men went to his apartment, it was empty. He took his things and disappeared." "So he's still in Boston," Helena said, her voice coming out weak. "Probably. But I have people looking for him. We'll find him." The fear Helena had kept at bay came back in a wave. "He won't give up. He never gives up." "I know," Stefan said, walking to her and taking her hands. "That's why I need you to stay vigilant. Don't go anywhere alone. Keep your phone with you always. And trust me when I say I'll find him before he gets near you." Helena wanted to believe him, but she knew Roman in ways Stefan didn't. Knew his patience, the way he could wait weeks or months before striking. "You don't understand," she said. "Roman is patient. He'll wait until you lower your guard, until I feel safe again. And then he'll strike." "Then I won't lower my guard," Stefan said firmly. "And neither will you." We'll be smarter than him." He pulled her into a hug, and Helena allowed herself to absorb his strength for a moment. But when she pulled back, she saw the worry in his eyes that he was trying to hide. He was more worried than he was letting on. Stefan left an hour later, but not before properly introducing Helena to Marcus, a huge man with a scar across his eyebrow and surprisingly kind eyes. "Anything," Marcus said to her. "And I'm here. Stefan trusts me to keep you safe, and I won't disappoint him." Helena spent the day trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. She cleaned the apartment, read, tried not to look out the window every 5 minutes to check if Marcus was still there. He was always there, a constant sentinel. Stefan sent messages every hour, checking on her, updating her on the search for Roman. Nothing yet, but we'll find him. In the afternoon, Helena decided she couldn't stay trapped in the apartment forever. She needed groceries, needed fresh air, needed to feel like a normal person again. She texted Stefan, "Need to go to the market. Can Marcus take me?" The response came quickly. "I'd prefer you wait until I can go with you. But if you need to go now, Marcus will go with you. Don't leave his sight." Helena went downstairs and found Marcus waiting. "The market is 3 blocks away," she said. "We can walk." Marcus nodded and followed her, always staying a few steps behind, eyes constantly scanning the area. It was strange and comforting at the same time. The market was moderately crowded, people shopping after work. Helena grabbed a basket and started going through the aisles, very aware of Marcus following her. She was in the produce section when she felt it. That feeling of being watched that she had learned to recognize during the years with Roman. She turned abruptly, eyes scanning the store. And then she saw him. Roman, standing at the end of the aisle, watching her with that smile she hated. Helena's heart stopped. "Marcus," she said, her voice coming out strangled. Marcus turned immediately, following her gaze, and his hand went to something under his coat. But Roman didn't approach. He just stood there, watching, and then slowly raised his phone and took a picture of her. Then he turned and disappeared between the aisles. "Stay here," Marcus ordered, and went after him. But Helena knew it was useless. Roman had planned this. He wanted her to know he was there, that he could get close whenever he wanted. Marcus returned 5 minutes later, frustration clear on his face. "He's gone. Left through the back exit. I already called Stefan. We're going back. Now." The trip back to the apartment was tense. Helena couldn't stop shaking. The image of Roman taking that photo burned into her mind. It was a message. "I can reach you whenever I want." Marcus was already moving, checking weapons, speaking rapidly with Dmitri in Russian. They knew she was right. "Go upstairs," Marcus ordered. "Lock yourself in the master bedroom. There's a panic room behind the closet. Code is 4729. You go in there and don't come out until you hear my voice or Stefan's voice. Understood?" Helena nodded and ran upstairs. She found the room, the closet, the hidden panel behind, typed the code with trembling fingers, and the door slid open, revealing a small room with supplies, water, and a monitor showing security camera feeds. She entered and closed the door, her heart beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. On the cameras, she could see Marcus and Dmitri positioning themselves, guns in hands. Then she saw it. A car arriving on the access road. It wasn't Stefan's car. Roman got out of the vehicle, and even through the grainy camera, Helena could see the gun in his hand. He had come armed, had come prepared, and he was coming for her. Marcus went out the front door, gun raised. "Stop right there," he ordered. "This is private property." Roman stopped, but didn't lower his gun. "I just want to talk to Helena. Not going to happen. Leave now or I'll make you leave." Roman laughed, the sound harsh. "You think you scare me? I have nothing to lose. Stefan Kozlov took everything from me. my apartment, my job, my dignity. The only thing I have left is Helena, and I'm not leaving without her." "She's not yours," Marcus said. "She never was." "She's mine," Roman screamed, the mask of sanity finally falling completely. "I spent 2 years molding her, making her what I needed. And she left me, humiliated me. But I'm going to bring her back. I'm going to remind her of her place." "Over my dead body," Marcus said. Roman smiled, and there was madness in that smile. "That can be arranged." He raised his gun, and everything happened at once. Marcus shot first, hitting Roman in the shoulder. Roman staggered but didn't fall, and returned fire. Helena watched in horror as Marcus fell, blood blooming on his chest. Dmitri came running out of the house, shooting, but Roman was already running back to the car. He got in and accelerated, disappearing down the road. Dmitri ran to Marcus, speaking urgently in Russian on the phone. Helena knew she should stay hidden, but Marcus was hurt because of her. She left the panic room and ran downstairs. Dmitri looked up when she appeared, anger and worry on his face. "I told you to stay hidden." "I'm fine," Marcus managed to say. "Bulletproof vest, just hurt like hell." Relief flooded Helena. "Dmitri, where's Stefan? 20 minutes away. He's coming, and I already called the police. Roman won't get far." But Helena knew better. Roman had escaped from Stefan once. He could do it again. And now he was wounded, desperate, and completely beyond reason. He was going to come back. She knew that with absolute certainty. He was going to come back, and next time, he wasn't going to stop until one of them was dead. 15 minutes later, Helena heard the sound of a car approaching at high speed. She ran to the window and saw Stefan's car skidding to a stop. He got out before the engine even completely shut off and ran inside. "Helena," he roared. "Here," she called, and then he was there, pulling her into his arms with enough force to hurt, but she didn't care. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine," Helena assured. He shot Marcus, but the vest held. "Stefan, he's completely lost it." "I know," Stefan said, his voice tense. "I saw what he did at the hotel. He killed the manager who tried to stop him." Horror washed over Helena. "He killed someone? Because of me?" "Not because of you," Stefan corrected firmly. "Because of him. Because of his choices. You're not responsible for his madness." But Helena felt responsible. Felt the weight of every action that had led to this moment. If she had never kissed Stefan in that restaurant, if she had just faced Roman alone, maybe none of this would have happened. Stefan must have seen the thoughts on her face because he took her face between his hands. "No," he said firmly. "Don't do that. Don't blame yourself. Roman chose to be violent, chose to escalate, chose to kill. That's on him, not you." Tears burned Helena's eyes. "How do we stop him? How do we end this?" "We find him," Stefan said, "and this time, I don't give him the option to leave." Sirens sounded in the distance, getting louder. The police were coming. Stefan turned to Dmitri. "You know what to say?" Dmitri nodded. "Unknown intruder. Shot first. Fled when we returned fire. Don't mention Roman by name until we have lawyers here." "Good." Stefan turned back to Helena. "You're going to have to give a statement. Just tell the truth about Roman, about the abuse, about why you're hiding here. Let me handle the rest." The next hours were a blur of police officers, paramedics, questions. Helena told her story so many times the words began to lose meaning. Yes, Roman was her abusive ex-boyfriend. Yes, he had threatened her. Yes, she was afraid for her life. No, she didn't know where he was now. Stefan stayed by her side through everything, a solid and comforting presence. His lawyers arrived and began dealing with the legal complications. Marcus was taken to the hospital as a precaution, though he insisted he was fine. When the police finally left, it was almost midnight. Helena was exhausted, emotionally and physically. Stefan guided her back upstairs to the bedroom. "You need to sleep," he said gently. "I can't," Helena said. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Roman. I see the gun. I see Marcus falling." "Then don't sleep yet," Stefan said. "Just lie down with me. Let me hold you." They lay on the bed, clothes and all. Helena curled against Stefan as if he were the only solid thing in a world that had become chaotic. "Stefan," she whispered in the darkness. "Yes? I'm scared." "I know. Me too." The admission surprised her. "You're scared?" "Of what?" "Of not being able to protect you," Stefan said, his voice raw. "Of failing you like I failed today." "You didn't fail," Helena protested. "I'm safe. But Marcus was shot. Someone died. And Roman is still out there, hunting you. That's failure in my book." Helena turned so she could see his face in the darkness. "You did everything you could. You took me out of Boston, put me in a safe place, had bodyguards. You couldn't predict Roman would steal your phone." "I should have predicted," Stefan said. "I underestimated how desperate he was. I won't make that mistake again." "What are you going to do?" "Hunt him. With every resource I have. He's wounded, desperate, and just committed murder. He's going to make mistakes. And when he does, I'll be waiting." "And when you find him?" Stefan was silent for a long moment. Then, so low she almost didn't hear, he said, "I'm going to do what I should have done from the beginning. I'm going to make sure he never hurts you or anyone else again." Helena knew what that meant. And the terrible part was that she felt no remorse. Just relief that soon, maybe, this would finally be over. They lay in the dark, two survivors of violence holding each other against the storm still to come. And somewhere in Boston, Roman was in an underground hospital having the bullet removed from his shoulder, planning his next move. Because he wasn't finished. Wasn't going to be finished until Helena was back where she belonged. Under his control. Or dead. The next 3 days were tense. Helena stayed at the cabin, practically a prisoner of her own safety. Stefan had tripled security, armed men patrolling the property 24 hours. He himself barely left her side, conducting business by phone and laptop. The police were looking for Roman, but he had disappeared completely. No sightings, no clues. It was as if he had evaporated. But Helena knew better. He was out there, waiting, planning. On the third night, Helena couldn't take it anymore. "I can't live like this," she said to Stefan as they ate dinner. Hidden, afraid of every sound. "This isn't life." "I know," Stefan said. "But it's temporary. Until we find Roman. What if you never find him? What if he just keeps hiding, waiting? Do I stay here forever?" "No," Stefan said firmly. "I won't let this become your life. We'll find him, I promise." But promises didn't change reality. And reality was that Roman had become a ghost, and ghosts were hard to hunt. That night, Helena had a nightmare. She was back in the apartment she had shared with Roman, and he was there, hands around her neck, squeezing, while she fought for air. She woke up screaming, and Stefan was there immediately, pulling her into his arms. "Just a dream," he murmured. "Just a dream. You're safe." But it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a premonition. On the fourth day, luck changed. One of Stefan's men spotted Roman at a pharmacy in the suburbs, buying medical supplies. They followed him to a cheap motel. Stefan received the call and immediately went into action mode. "I need to go," he said to Helena. "We found him." "Let me go with you," Helena asked. "Absolutely not," Stefan said. "You stay here where you're safe." "I want to be there when it's over," Helena insisted. "I need to see with my own eyes that he can't hurt me anymore." Stefan studied her. then nodded slowly. Okay, but you stay in the car with Dimitri. You don't get out no matter what happens. Understood. Understood. The trip back to Boston was tense. Helena could feel the energy coming from Stefan, the contained violence just waiting to be released. They arrived at the motel as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. Appropriate, Helena thought, red like blood. Stefan turned to her before getting out of the car. Stay here. Lock the doors. Don't get out no matter what you hear. Be careful, Helena said. Always, Stefan responded, and then he was gone, moving with deadly purpose toward the room where Roman was hiding. Helena watched through the window, heart in her throat. She saw Stefan and 3 of his men position themselves outside the door. Saw Stefan knock, once, twice. Then the door opened, and everything exploded into chaos. Gunshots, screams. Helena couldn't see what was happening inside the room, but she could hear. Every sound made her heart jump. Then, silence. Terrible and absolute silence. The motel door opened, and Stefan came out. There was blood on his shirt, but he was walking steady. He walked back to the car and opened the door. It's over, he said simply. Roman? Dead. He shot first. We returned fire. Self-defense. Helena should feel something. Sadness, maybe, or horror. But all she felt was overwhelming relief. It's over. Really over. She got out of the car and threw herself into Stefan's arms, sobbing against his chest. He held her tight, one hand stroking her hair. You're free, he murmured. Finally, truly free. The police arrived. More questions, more statements. But this time it was different. This time there was a body, evidence, closure. Roman had shot first. Multiple witnesses confirmed. It was clear self-defense. It took hours to process the scene, but eventually they were released. Stefan took Helena back to the cabin, and for the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe. That night they sat on the porch watching the stars. Is it really over? Helena asked. It's over, Stefan confirmed. Roman can't hurt you anymore. No one can. Helena turned to look at him. Thank you. For everything. For saving me. You saved yourself, Stefan said. You had the courage to ask for help, to leave him, to rebuild. I just removed the last obstacle. Still, you changed my life. You gave me my freedom back. Stefan took her hand. And you gave me something I didn't know was missing. Purpose. Reason to use my power for something beyond business. You made me want to be better. They kissed under the stars, a kiss that was promise and celebration and relief. When they separated, Stefan said, Come back to Boston with me. Not to hide, but to live. Really live. Build that bookstore you dream about. See your friends. Reconnect with your family. And let me be by your side through all of it. As my real boyfriend this time? Helena asked with a smile. As whatever you want me to be, Stefan said. Boyfriend, partner, protector. I just want to be in your life. I want that too, Helena said. I want all of it. Then it's yours. They returned to Boston 2 days later. Helena moved back to her apartment, but this time with new locks, security cameras, and the certainty that she would never be alone again. Stefan was a constant presence, but not suffocating. He encouraged her to reconnect with friends she had lost during the years with Roman, to call her family and rebuild those bridges, to pursue her dreams. 3 months later, Helena signed the lease for a small commercial space, her bookstore. Stefan was there, champagne in hand, smiling with genuine pride. You did it, he said. Built something of your own. We did, Helena corrected. I wouldn't be here without you. Maybe, Stefan conceded. But you would have found a way. You're stronger than you think. Helena looked around the empty space that would soon be filled with bookshelves and books and realized dreams. She thought about how far she had come. From the terrified woman who had kissed a stranger in desperation to the woman she was now, free and strong, and building the life she always wanted. "I love you," she said suddenly, the words coming out before she could think better of it. Stefan went still. Then a slow, genuine, completely transformative smile spread across his face. "I love you too," he said. "From the moment you had the courage to kiss me and ask for help, I knew you were special." They kissed in the middle of the empty bookstore, two survivors who had found healing in each other. And for the first time in her life, Helena didn't feel fear of the future, just excitement for what was to come. 6 months later, the bookstore was thriving. Helena had reconnected with her family and made new friends. She still went to therapy, still had difficult days, but she was healing. And Stefan was there through everything, patient and protective, but never controlling. He had learned the difference, and she had learned to trust again. One night, as they were closing the bookstore together, Stefan knelt down. "Helena Carter," he said, holding a small velvet box. "You taught me that power isn't about control, but about protecting what's precious. You made me want to be better. You gave me purpose. Marry me. Not because you need protection, but because I want to spend every day of the rest of my life making you happy." Tears ran down Helena's face, but this time they were tears of joy. "Yes," she said, 1,000 times. "Yes." He slid the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss that promised forever. And Helena knew, with absolute certainty, that she had finally found what she always deserved. Not a man who controlled her, but a man who celebrated her. Not a prison, but a partnership. Not fear, but love. She was free. And she was loved. And that was everything. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story of overcoming, love, and new beginnings, consider becoming a channel member to have access to exclusive videos, or send a super thanks. Every donation made to the channel will be dedicated to creating new stories that will move you and hold your attention. Your contribution makes all the difference, so we can continue bringing quality content. Until the next story.